Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We'll be talking about the case as far as the bat symbol is concerned that is currently in progress in the Supreme Court. What can we expect? Of course, there's very little time left as far as the symbol being assigned to all political parties are concerned in terms of course, the campaign and what it will mean for each political party. We'll be talking about where this seems to be going and of course as far how integral and important it is, of course, for all political parties. A little later on, we'll also be talking about the resignations we've seen in the Supreme Court and the allegations that are currently being made as far as the superior judges are concerned and what it means overall for the Supreme Court at this time when the superior judiciary chooses to resign in this manner. All of that today on Perspective. I have with me today Saif Jamshed Baryar, who's a political analyst. Thank you so much for being with us today. We also have with us Faraz Ali Khan, who's also a political analyst. Thank you for being with us. We have with us Muhammad Ali Rashid, who is with the PPP. Thank you for joining us today. And Safiullah Ghori, who is a barrister and a legal expert. Thank you for being with us today. Before I go on to the guests in the studio, I'm going to start with Safiullah. Safiullah, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly well, Mahrukh.
Safiullah, this case right now, that is in progress as far as the symbol being assigned to PTI is concerned. How do you look at this? And, of course, a lot of people are saying the reading, the way that it is being read, the purview of the Election Commission itself with regard to assigning of this symbol, along with how it is being read. How do you look at it as a lawyer overall?
So, Mahrukh, it's early days right now. The reason why I say this is because so far, as per the hearing, the Supreme Court has only heard the Election Commission. The PTI lawyers were there, but they've asked for time until Monday to respond. However, it is unlikely that they will have a response, and that is simply because the Peshawar High Court has not given a proper judgment on the matter as yet. They have restored the election symbol in a short order, without giving any legal rationale as to why. If you remember, the Peshawar High Court's order says in passing that Article 17 applies, the rights of the people are to participate in elections, and therefore they're just doing it without going over the points that were raised by the ECP, which were very pertinent. The ECP points towards a series of very important matters, the most important of which being that if there is to be democracy within the country, then there is to be democracy within the parties. And Barrister
there's some debate happening at this time with regard to Section 215 of the Elections Act, if I'm not wrong, and how whether that purview of that itself and what it empowers to as far as the Election Commission is concerned. How pertinent, how relevant, and how do you look at that debate that is in progress at this time? And also, in a case like this, where the detailed judgment, the rationale, like you say, is not available, and yet there is a time issue. What is the normal procedure? What happens? Because clearly time is of the essence here for all political parties.
So the time issue I cannot comment on. I do understand that this is something that has to be decided, in fact had to be decided yesterday. 11th was the last date. So I don't know how the Supreme Court will manage to extend the constitutional time limits on that. But as far as Section 215 of the Election Act is concerned, I don't really see what the debate is and why this is being debated in the first place. It's very clear and it's very obvious.
Okay, you don't think it's ambiguous at all?
I mean, a plain reading of the section makes it very obvious what the powers of the Election Commission are. And if one were not to agree to it, then why would this is one of those things that the PTI has constantly been doing for some reason. And I don't understand how any lawyer could debate this. The section is very clear. The PTI continues to portray the Election Commission as a legal body. This was pointed out today, even in the hearing when Hamid Khan Saab was there, and the Chief Justice reprimanded him and told him that even the case law that you are presenting pertains to legal bodies. It does not pertain to institutional bodies. The Election Commission is an institutional body made by the Constitution of Pakistan. Now, this constitution.
But does it give? But does the section itself give the Election Commission powers to scrutinize intra-party elections specifically? I want to come to that. I'm going to include also Mohammad Ali Rashid in the discussion. Ji, Ali, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Ali, there is, a lot, we saw what happened as far as these allegations of level playing field were concerned by one particular party. With this case now, of course, time being an issue, and of course, whether they do get the symbol or not, do you think we are again going to be heading towards the same? Because of course we've seen a record number of nomination papers being accepted even after these allegations, but of course the symbol will be crucial to the elections, to of course the electoral campaign for all and this particular political party also.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. In my opinion, I think the entire process and the legal point which they're talking about is first, I think, foremost, if the Election Commission has the authority to do so, legally they do. And I think the laws, the election laws clearly state that. Did PTI have a secret election which nobody knew about? They did, because their own workers and office bearers actually came forward and testified, okay, we were not aware of this, and if this election did happen, where did it take place? It did not take place. So whatever it is, I feel that PTI does have a habit of acting like a crybaby, and they've done this all. We've seen them do it in the past. We saw them when their candidates, for technical reasons, the ROs rejected their nomination papers. They again started blaming the Election Commission and the courts also. Then they went to court, and almost every single one of them got reinstated, and they got back their applications got accepted. So I think they should just trust the process, because see, if they're getting relief from the courts.
But as a political worker, Ali, before I move on, as a political worker, do you expect, I mean, if this does not happen, if they don't get the symbol, of course, we don't know what will happen, and this is purely speculative, but if they don't get the symbol, what will it mean, in your opinion, for the upcoming elections, for the credibility? Do you think it will affect the credibility at all? How do you look at that?
Look, in my opinion, the credibility of the party has already been compromised when the founder and the chairman, the founder is not the chairman anymore. A chairman of PTI is some guy who's just joined the party last year. None of the old guards, nobody, everybody who's gotten power. The guy who's actually awarding tickets to people is somebody who's just joined the party a year back. So the credibility is already, there's a big question mark in gray area. So absolutely, if there's no bat credibility, I don't think the voters will be able to, if there is, I'm sure there are voters who are supporting the party, they won't know what to do. And I feel if all the candidates contest as independent, people without the bat, there'll be a lot of confusion, and we're very short on time. So I don't see them doing very well or fairly well, or I don't even know how it'll actually happen. Because if they don't get the bat, then what will they get? Will it be different for every individual? Will the candidates have to, contest elections with different symbols, or will then PTI apply for some other symbol, which will be?
This happened, as I understand, with your party, and you were awarded a different symbol, as I understand. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Absolutely, you're right. We were awarded a different symbol, and then we the other symbol, which was the ownership of PPP, not PPPP, was the sword. But when we contested, we had to do we had to show that we are working together and we are one party, and then we got the arrow back. But we did have those kind of difficulties. But the thing is, that was back in the day, and that was also at a time where we had more time to do the campaign. I think here things are very, it's just a very confusing situation right now, right?
Let me come back to, I think that he's right, Farasa, when you say that it's a very confusing situation. I think that's probably an apt way of looking at where we are at this time. And unless there's some clarity as to, what and how there's going to be an election with one particular party not having the symbol, there's going to be this, what can one say, confusion, this kind of, we don't know, there's no clarity at this time. But what do you expect, in your opinion?
Well, Mahrukh, thank you for having me on the show. Last time we spoke, we used the word chaos, and it grows every time. With the resignations coming from Supreme Court and all the symbol fiasco going on, definitely the confusion is just building up. But what I would like to add over here is, if an institutes like Election Commission, ECPs, own orders get challenged somewhere, for example, Peshawar High Court, and they get turned down, we don't see a precedent again the institute following that up or, at a higher court such as Supreme Court right now. So this in itself is a shocking thing done by ECP. More apparently it seems like that ECP is more interesting to rip off PTI from bat symbol than the competitors themselves. And then
I think that was also another issue that was discussed in court today, and I will go to Safiullah on this, but first I'm going to include Saif Saab in this. Saif, chaos is a word that Faraz Saab has used, but overall in terms of the electoral process, we are looking at things moving otherwise in a timely manner. When we look at the tickets being awarded, when we look at the appeals, when we look at the scrutiny, when we look at now, the withdrawals, I think today probably is the last date for that. Things seem to be moving on schedule. We also have, we've seen the PPP already starting their campaigning, and as far as the PMLN is concerned, there's a schedule now for their campaigning that's going to start. So overall, how do you look at things?
Thank you, Mahrukh, for having me on the show today. Well, I'd first take you a little into the historical context of the entire build-up. It was back in 2002 when we had the election order 2002, and after the revising of election order of 2002, we had the Elections Act of 2017. Now, the interesting thing over here is that the Elections Act of 2017 actually empowers the Chief Election Commissioner to make new rules without taking consent of the President. Previously, as compared to the 2002 election order, consent was necessary in order to implement and to make new rules. So number one, when we see this entire decision by the Peshawar High Court, we need to be seeing that there are two problems here. The first problem here is that the Election Commission right now, after 2017 Elections Act, is actually empowered. I repeat, it is actually empowered to make new rules, given that it publishes them within a particular time frame period, number one. Number second, even if we talk about the verdict of the Peshawar High Court, the Election Commission has a very valid concern that the Peshawar High Court should have issued a notice to the Attorney General of Pakistan as well, because this is the issue of the Federation. And there had to be a federal representative because the Election Commission stands for the Federation, not a particular province. And then again, I personally think, on a personal level, I do think that PTI having filed contempt petitions against the Election Commissioner and the members itself is an actual volatility of the future. Before having the detailed judgment, I think this shouldn't have happened. And furthermore, moving on here, I firmly believe that if we look at the role of the Election Commission right now, it is the political parties that are making it non-transparent. The Election Commission's role is going according to a timeline. The publications are happening according to a timeline, and actually they're actually following the Article 17 or maybe the Section 215 and 217 of the Elections Act. So what more do the political parties want from the Election Commission of Pakistan? That is a question.
Let me go to Advocate Raja Khalid Mahmood Khan, who is of the Supreme Court. Raja Sahab, can you hear me?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
There is, I don't know if you've been following the discussion so far, but there is this, as far as this decision of the Supreme Court is concerned, that is being awaited. As far as the Peshawar High Court's decision is concerned, do you think that it leaves, we don't have the detailed judgment, there's loopholes on that, but as far as the Election Commission to go against the decision to the Supreme Court is concerned, is this, in your opinion, unprecedented?
I think it is not unprecedented. Unprecedented means because I could not hear you and could not hear the conversation of your participants.
Unprecedented in the sense that has it happened before that the Election Commission has followed in this manner, this case, which of course, in this instance it's gone against. And we also heard some comments from the proceedings today where, of course, we saw the CJ saying that whether between the PTI's lawyer and the Chief Justice, whether the Election Commission can actually go against this to the Supreme Court and whether or only an aggrieved person can go. In that sense, how do you look at the standing argument as a lawyer?
The basic thing is that the inter-party elections of the PTI were not held in accordance with the Constitution or in accordance with the Election Act 2017. It was a mockery with the democracy and with the Election Act. And that was properly, sorry, I am driving right now, I have to park.
I'll come back to you. Okay. Safiullah, I think the same question to you. When you look at this, the standing argument, how would you, legally speaking, as far as, Election Commission going against the decision itself to, Supreme Court after the Peshawar High Court, is this done before? Has it been done before? How do you look at this?
Mahrukh, it's actually fairly common for the Election Commission to go to the Supreme Court. In fact, it happened only last month when the Lahore High Court gave an order suspending the elections, and the Election Commission went against the Lahore High Court to the Supreme Court of Pakistan, saying that elections must take place on time. If you recall, the Lahore High Court, because on PTI's petition, had suspended the elections, citing that ROs are not being appointed properly, and the Election Commission challenged that successfully in the Supreme Court. So, the Election Commission has been going to the Supreme Court fairly often. It is, and rightly so, it is going to the Supreme Court more so now, because it has to assert its powers and it has to assert its rules. The Election Commission of Pakistan, unfortunately, and when I compare it to other election commissions such as that of India, is a target of tremendous misinformation. In India, for instance, election commissions have even arrested very senior politicians as and when they felt, because they are a quasi-judicial body. In Pakistan, PTI has been campaigning against the Election Commission almost as if the Election Commission was not a constitutional body, but rather a political party. And even recently, Imran Khan Saab said that he is going to file Article 6 charges against the Election Commission, which is very, very strange and very, very, very upsetting. In fact, even right now, you just said that there is a debate going on. So I actually pulled out Section 215, and subsection 5 reads very clearly, if you allow me to just read that exact section for you. It says the commission may, after affording it, talking about, a political party to whom a show cause notice has been issued regarding the removing of the symbol. It says the commission may, after affording it or them an opportunity to be heard, declare it or them to be ineligible to obtain an election symbol for the elections to the Majlis Shura, Parliament, Provincial Assembly, or local government, and the election commission and the commission shall not allocate any election symbol to such a political party. Very clear there. I mean, I don't see why one can sit and debate whether the Election Commission has such a power when the Section 215 in no ambiguous terms is stating that the Election Commission has such a power after giving them a fair hearing, which was done. Election Commission gave them a hearing.
There's an argument here that we've been hearing in the studio that the political parties are themselves making this controversial. You would agree with that?
No, of course, that's what I'm saying. So there is, like I said, that the Election Commission of Pakistan is consistently being a victim of this misinformation campaign, and this has been going on for years now.
From the Peshawar High Court.
Sorry, come again.
Of course, there's a judgment for them in the lower court, and now, there's clearly some basis in that sense.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't gather the question, Mahrukh. If you would be kind enough to repeat it, please.
Of course, in this instance, as far as this case is concerned, in the lower courts, they've managed to convince the lower court. As far as, we don't have the detailed judgment, but as far as the PTI is concerned, they do have a favorable judgment in the lower court. And now, of course, these issues are being explored in the Supreme Court. So in that sense, that's what they're saying. That's what the PTI is building its argument on, so to speak.
No, so if we actually know the PTI's argument, and the PTI's argument is not that the Election Commission does not have this power, by the way. This is not something that the PTI has said. Also, I want to clarify here that the PTI also agrees that the inter-party elections are not fair. They have very clearly stated before the Election Commission that their own president, in fact, has admitted before the Election Commission, before the Peshawar High Court, and now even before the Supreme Court, that there were irregularities in holding the elections and they were not held as per the proper mannerism. So that much is clear. The interpretation of Section 215 is clear. Now they're just challenging the Election Commission's very basis. They say the Election Commission cannot do so because the Election Commission is not an empowered body. And that's the problem, because they keep viewing the Election Commission not as a constitutional institution, but rather as an opposing party of some sort. And this is something that was clear today when Hamid Khan Sahab brought along some case law that had to do with civil rights of individual parties. And the Chief Justice had to snub him and tell him that we are not talking about a legal body here, we are talking about an institutional body. So this confusion is being perpetuated almost as if by design. And I think the only reason is just to try and make it sort of, pervasive in the minds of the public that the Election Commission is one biased, completely irrelevant branch of the government that is bent upon giving decisions against the PTI. If the same Election Commission were to today give decisions for the PTI would like it more than anything else.
Right. Ali, there is, we've seen the recent events as far as resignations within the Supreme Court are concerned. In the background, of course, there's a lot of allegations that even, political parties have been making as far as judges are concerned, as far as the superior judiciary is concerned. These latest resignations, how do you look at this? And of course, there's a lot that is being said, whether more will follow or not, we don't know. We have no way of knowing this. But overall, in terms of what this means for all that had been said from the point go by, a lot of political parties, how do you look at that?
Look, in my opinion, the two judges which have resigned have always been, there have been some issues regarding them when it comes to PTI, and previously it's been very controversial, the kind of verdicts they've given, and political parties have also pointed it out. And within the Supreme Court and the judges, there was also a division which we had seen. And these two judges in particular were the odd ones out. And maybe one more person, I'm not sure if there's a third judge also, maybe there is. But I think whatever is happening it's happening with the due process. They had some allegations. In my opinion, if a judge resigns, then they don't have to actually face any kind of scrutiny or allegations or inquiry, right? If he resigns, he resigns. So if he resigns, he still gets suspension. He gets a clean sheet. But if the allegations which have been, leveled against him, if there's an actual inquiry and they actually make it reach its logical conclusion,
I think the inquiry will continue regardless, because I think the Supreme Judicial Council has decided to go ahead with the proceedings. Let me come back to you, Ji. Saif, isn't that true as far as these? So in this case, the resignations will not end the inquiry that is instituted.
Absolutely, Mahrukh. I think the spirit of justice, or the essence of justice, is that when in this country, political people who are Democrats at heart, they have been again and again tried in the courts. Elected prime ministers have lost premierships again and again, and they've always accepted the law, they've respected the law, and the show has always went on. That's number one. And number second, if today the highest order judiciary sets a symbolism of resigning as maybe a sign of not being willing to face justice, then I think it sets a very wrong precedent at the highest level of the court as well. And when it's concerned about the Supreme Judicial Council's proceedings, you're absolutely right. These proceedings will continue until something is decided. Because in Justice Mazahir's case and Justice Ijazul Ehsan's case, the biggest controversy has been that a certain set of judges was maybe having a very different stance, and they were having a very different camp. I'm talking about the Panama case. Now, the very idea over here is to understand that when it's about justice, there is no camp. The only camp of justice is the Constitution of 73. That's the camp of justice. And if today the Supreme Judicial Council has initiated its proceedings, then I think with all the spirit and might of justice, these judges should present themselves every time before the Supreme Judicial Council. Because if you talk about the state apparatus, when we talk about the dysfunctionalism in our parliamentary democracy, we equally need to be commenting on the dysfunctionalism of bureaucracy. We equally need to be commenting on the dysfunctionalism of judiciary as well. And if military dictators have been tried previously, if maybe former President Musharraf's stance was upheld at the highest level of court, if maybe elected premiers have lost their premierships through the court and they've respected what the court stands for, then the people who are there to dispense justice in this country need to stand up for the spirit of justice as well.
Let me go to Raja Khalid Sahab and I'll come back to you, Faraz Sahab. Ji, Raja Sahab, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Thank you very
Raja
much.
Sahab, we're talking about the resignations that have happened in the Supreme Court and how, of course, the proceedings in the Supreme Judicial Council will continue. How do you, as a lawyer, look at these proceedings, and how do you look at these resignations and what they mean for all the allegations that were earlier being made by political parties, controversial cases which were decided by these cases? How do you overall look at this?
Okay. First of all, I want to respond to your first question. When I was driving, I was traveling at that time and could not hear you properly. You are asking about the proceedings of Honorable Supreme Court of Pakistan about the petition, about the appeal in which the judgment of the Peshawar High Court has been challenged. My view is that before the Supreme Court of Pakistan, the question which is very important and which has to be agitated and which has to be determined by the Supreme Court, that if the case is case of public importance, then the court can take the cognizance of that. But before the High Court, under Article 199, court has to see whether the person who is invoking the constitutional jurisdiction of the High Court, whether he is an aggrieved party or not. Two things are different and two parameters are totally different before the Supreme Court and High Court. Under Article 184(3) and under Article 199. First. Second, you are asking about the resignation of the judges of Honorable Supreme Court of Pakistan. My view is that as far as the case of Muzair Ali Akbar Naqvi is concerned, when his case was ripe up, his case was entered into conclusion and into last phase of the trial or investigation, he resigned. It is very unfortunate that judge, when he assumes that the judgment or order is being passed against me and I shall be booked and I shall be convicted or I shall be removed, forthwith he resigns, forcing this situation. It is not the way. If an army officer, he commits a misconduct or he is guilty of an offense, he will be tried by the Field General Court Martial and he will be convicted and imprisoned as well as he will not take the pension benefits. So far as the civil servant case of the civil servant is concerned, the civil servant, if he, there are two ways. If he is exonerated, he is entitled for the pension benefits. He is acquitted. If he is convicted, he found guilty of misconduct, he shall be dismissed from service and he will not entitled for the pension benefits. But here, the judge of either he is judge of High Court or
that due process should follow and everyone should face the law, and nobody, there are no holy cows, so to speak, as I understand. Thank you so much, Raja Sahab. Thank you for your very valuable input. Faraz Sahab, do you agree overall? Of course, in this manner, when the judiciary, superior members of the judiciary themselves resign, it does point out, a lot of issues within our legal system, within our, perhaps the judiciary itself also. And we've seen in the past, very recently, there has been a lot of, polarization within the judiciary also.
Yeah, definitely. First of all, with the Supreme Judicial Council, it has been used a lot recently, starting with the CJ himself. But with Justice Qazi Faiz Isa, he was man enough to stand up and face it. So he faced the whole music and he came out clean. So there's only one way. When proceeding starts, you have to either face it or you can, go away like Justice Naqvi. Had Justice Mazahir Naqvi resigned before the proceeding started, that would have been given a different perspective, that he does not want to influence the decision. He does not want to sit in the bench. But then again, I think he could probably smell the rat. That's what we can conclude over here. But with Justice Ejazul Hasan, it's pretty shocking.
He's also supposed to be the next. He was scheduled. I mean, in terms of his seniority, he was going to be the next Chief Justice also. So in that sense,
yes, definitely. And then just consider the amount of pressure that he might be in. Maybe, but the point is, I think personally, it's just like Ali Saab just concluded over there. There's been a camp. We call that Banyal camp. Probably it's
but that's what I'm talking about.
Down.
Is there Saif, this is for there to be camps in this manner, for there to be allusions to these camps on television, on Twitter, on it's been everywhere, so to speak. It's on social media. It reeks of flaws within our justice system, does it not?
Absolutely, Mahrukh. I think there's a need for an immediate catharsis. I do believe that when it comes to the idea of justice, transparency is the only camp, and the Constitution is the foundation of that camp. Political parties can afford to have opinions. And you know law better than me. Law is very much objective. Law is very much rational. There is no gray in between the law. There's either black, there's either white. There's either right, there's either wrong. And when I'd like to lift up the argument from where Faraz Saab left, he said that when the Chief Justice himself had set a precedent, a beautiful one, to be appearing before the Supreme Judicial Council, to be coming out clean, then I think the second top senior most person to be becoming the Chief Justice, had he not given resignation, should have done the same. I think when it calls for transparency at the state level, it calls for transparency within the parliament, within the bureaucracy, within institutions. If the role of the Election Commission is being so much questioned, then definitely so after 7-8 months, the role of the courts will be questioned as well. And we are not honestly discussing something new. The role of the courts has always been discussed after every election and during every government's tenure. So I think this calls for better measures of transparency, and the legal fraternity and the judicial fraternity also needs to think, and an exercise of introspection is required at the moment.
Safiullah, do you think that, in terms of how the lawyers look at this, how the legal fraternity is looking at it, can you give us a perspective how, in terms of how in the past, I think we've spoken about this before also, that the lawyers themselves, the judges, the way that the judges are looked at, again, camps that are being alluded, that were at one time alluded to openly, so to speak, in this manner, what does it mean for our judicial process? What does it mean for, I want to talk about normal, for not only for political parties, not only for, the politicians in this country, not only for people who go to these superior courts with a certain confidence, with a certain kind of, belief that there will be justice. What does it mean, in your opinion, for them?
I think it's absolutely terrifying, right? For anyone to believe that judges are in particular camps, for anyone to think that judges are not looking at the law, but they are rather looking at ideological matters that may lie before them, that they may be looking at connections, that they may be looking at, how they may be related to a particular case. These are all very damaging for the judicial system. And you know it much better than I do. You're also a barrister. You asked me, how are lawyers looking? Mahrukh, you and I are in several lawyer groups together. We know the conversations that are going on. It's a joke, right? And none of these people, none of the conversations that we are witnessing ourselves are conversations that have anything to do with law or justice. They all have to do with who's who knows who's connected to whom. And unfortunately, this is what our system has come down to. The Pakistani system of institution of politics, this is what it always was, a system based on brotherhood, a system based on ideological and interest based alignments, and this is now just being re-emphasized. However, I do want to say something which is very important, that if we were to consider that this system does exist, and I mean all indications seem to suggest that this does exist, this is a death knell to PTI. The reason why I say this is because until just yesterday, a very strong argument to be made by the supposed PTI camp was that if Imran Khan comes into power in February, and then in 9 months Justice Ijazul Ahsan comes into power, then, and since Ijazul Ahsan is very clearly pro PTI, then Imran Khan and the judiciary of Pakistan will at least be on the same page, and that is going to result in Imran Khan being able to tame on other institutions like the military, like the bureaucracy and the ECP or whatever have you, and everything will become hunky-dory. Pakistan will become a very stable country. Now that argument has gone away, because now all we know is that even if by a miracle PTI was to come into power and Imran Khan goes on to become the Prime Minister of Pakistan, he will, as per PTI's own arguments, he will have an antagonized judiciary, he will have an antagonized military, an antagonized bureaucracy. Every institution would be working against him. The country cannot function.
But isn't the question why the institutions should work for or against anyone? I mean, we should have, you know, of course, I'm sure you agree with me, and I want to take Ali's opinion on this also, but you know, all institutions should work within the purview of their powers, and regardless of who comes into power, how comes into power, you know, not how, but who comes into power through legitimate means, it shouldn't matter, you know, how, and of course stability should reign supreme, and there should, the other considerations should be there, which are more important, like following the rules, following the law. Ji Ali.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, but maybe in the perfect world, things should be like this, but unfortunately they're not, and I feel the kind of disturbance and the kind of issues which were the kind of Frankenstein monster which was created in the past 5 years, the hybrid Frankenstein monster, where people from judges, establishment, people from different aspects, you know, politicians, which were brought together. I think sometimes, you know, they say the darkest hour of the night is right before dawn breaks. I feel that things are taking time, but there's still, things are going towards stability. I think this is much needed. We needed to, you know, do this cleansing. We needed to get these people out. You know, I'm so glad people are resigning if they're actually seeing, you know, they don't want to be accountable. They don't want to present themselves in front of the Supreme the Council, and they choose to resign. That's their choice, and I'm glad that
on the accountability process anyway. Ji Faraz Sahab.
I just want to add one thing, a very different perspective. Apart from what happened with Justice Naqvi and Ijazul Ahsan Sahab, don't you think this is a waste of our money? We've spent millions and millions of rupees to train them and put them in years, taking experience, giving them experience, to put them in a pedestal where they would dispense justice. This is basically a loss of the nation, which is already under immense pressure of not being, the cases are not being heard, and justice system is already crippling. So don't you think this is it's a different perspective which nobody's talking about? We spend so much money on them.
The political aspect of it is a whole other side, and you're right. Actually, it matters more about the dispensing of justice and how, you know, just the system itself is, and it points to a lot of flaws within the system, which I think no one is talking about, and I think that's more important. Thank you so much for joining us today. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you for being with us. Faraz Ali Khan Sahab, thank you for joining us. Saif Jamshed Baryar Sahab, thank you for being with us. Muhammad Ali Rashid, thank you for joining us. Safiullah Khawari, thank you so much for being with us today. Advocate Raja Khalid Mahmood Sahab, thank you for joining us. Overall, of course, we are at this time talking about a judiciary that has in the past been very polarized. We are also talking about a judiciary that, you know, again, former judgments that were political, and their role itself and how controversial they have been are also being debated. Perhaps the question, of course, is again, when we talk about, when issues like this come to the fore, do they not reek of perhaps a deeper problem with the justice system? And again, we have seen political parties, we have seen parties come into power talking about reform, judicial reform being right there at the top as far as you know, their agenda is concerned, but those have never happened. Perhaps this is again a time to look for those solutions that are long-term and will perhaps transcend to all levels of society. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.